A major issue in this state is voter fraud. It's been a big issue for a long time, but never like this. We sent out tens of thousands, millions and millions of ballots. Nobody knew where they came from, where they are. People were getting 2, 3, 4 ballots. They were signing them, sending them in. What a mess. The left lies, they cheat and they steal. They are ruthless and they are hell-bent on getting power and control by any means necessary. They investigate you and they prosecute you. The moment you question them, they try and intimidate you. They call you a poor American. You're not a good American. You don't love our country. They don't love our country. They beat you down, shut you up, and make you retreat. That's what they do.
Joining me now to talk about the Trump campaign's lawsuit that was filed in the Peach State on Friday is election law attorney Cleta Mitchell, with more than 40 years of experience in law, politics, and public policy. Hopefully she can help us get to the bottom of this. Cleta, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tony. It's always great to be with you.
All right. A pretty revealing lawsuit that was filed, the information that you have acquired along with others, many saying that where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Well, it looks like you've presented a lot of evidence.
Yeah, 64-page contest petition accompanied by exhibits and affidavits, nearly 100 affidavits. So it's over 1,000 pages, sworn testimony. These are people who signed affidavits under penalty of perjury. There's nothing in this lawsuit that is not backed up by either a sworn affidavit by an eyewitness as to a violation of the Georgia election code or a declaration by an expert who has analyzed the Georgia election and voting records. So every single assertion in this lawsuit is backed up by evidence. So anyone who says, and I will guarantee you that the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, has not read, he's the number one defendant. We see, the Trump campaign sued him. And I guarantee you he has not read that petition. He has not read the affidavits of those Georgia citizens. He has not read the analysis of his own data. And you can't read that and not understand that there are well more than the number of votes, illegal votes that are included in the tabulation that are illegal and should be thrown out. And the remedy under Georgia state law is a new election. Of course, the time period is so truncated with regard to a presidential campaign that that's a bit of a difficulty, but we're considering other options. But look, this election was not valid. Those results are not valid. Whatever anybody says, they are not valid. And the Secretary of State has a lot to answer for, in my opinion.
So, Cleta, at present, what is the difference in vote tallies between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in the state of Georgia?
Well, it does keep changing. Let's remember that part. The Secretary of State says, we've had the first vote and 2 recounts. It's all the same. No, we've had 3 different numbers. It's about 11,600. I think it's 11,672 votes.
So less than 12,000 votes.
And we have identified it's not quite. It's less than 12,000 votes. Yes, it's 0.5% of the total number of ballots cast in the election.
All right. So in your filings in court, you have data experts that have provided sworn testimony. Now, this is under penalty of law if they were to be lying or provide false information. They identify thousands of illegal votes, 2,560 felons, 66,247 underage voters, 2,423 votes from people not registered, 1,043 individuals registered at post office boxes, not validating that they actually have a place and they live there, 4,926 individuals who voted in Georgia after registering in another state, which is illegal, 395 individuals who voted in 2 states, 15,700 votes from people who moved out of the state before the election, 40,279 people votes of people who moved without registering in their new county, and another 30,000 to 40,000 absentee ballots lacking proper signature matching verifications. Now, I was not really good in math, but that far exceeds 12,000.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's what's so remarkable here is that there are several of these violations that just taken by themselves would be 3 to 4 times the number required to invalidate the election. And we've put it's all in there. So, the thing that is so frustrating is the media and the GOP establishment. The governor has not been willing to call a special session of the legislature to allow the legislature to decide and exercise its constitutional duty to appoint the presidential electors. I don't know why he won't do that. He needs to call a special session simply to reaffirm and put some teeth into the provision to require signature matching on the absentee ballots. That's where a lot of the fraud occurred during the November 3rd election. I don't know why he doesn't want to try to do everything he can to stop this double steal. But, they stole it on November 3rd, and they're going to steal it again in January unless the governor gets some guts.
Now, Cleta, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like your lawsuit focuses solely on Georgia law and how it was not enforced or upheld during this election.
That's right.
So this is
all
about...
the reason for that is this.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
But it's all about Georgia. It's all about Georgia law, and it's necessary to build that record. I'm a volunteer. We have some other volunteers helping because there's just so much that needed to be included. And the goal was to create a public record that demonstrated the extent of the violations and the illegality and the fact that when the legislatures of understand this, the legislatures of the states are designated under the U.S. Constitution as being responsible for determining the manner in which presidential electors are appointed. And all the legislatures have created these election codes and let the people have a voice. That's not specified in the Constitution. But when the legislature exercises that authority and says, all right, you got to follow this election code, and then the election is conducted not in keeping with the election code, the legislature should reclaim its constitutional responsibility and choose the presidential electors. That is what the Constitution provides. There's actually no provision to vote for the citizens to vote.
This is an element of the rule of law. I mean, we have rules, we have laws in place to ensure that things function and everybody can agree with the final outcome. So when laws are being violated or ignored, I mean, it should concern everyone. And part of the filing in this particular suit, as I understand it, was showing that this is not just a one-off, that it appears to be a coordinated effort across the country and other states to violate the laws passed by legislatures through the courts using other officials. Is that accurate?
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. The Democrats and their left-wing allies started in 2019, well before COVID, I might add. Don't forget that H.R. 1, the first bill taken up by Nancy Pelosi when the Democrats won control of the House in 2018, H.R. 1 in January was a massive election bill that would have provided for all of these absentee ballots everywhere in the country, et cetera. And then when COVID came in, but they started suing. Even in 2019, they started filing lawsuits. They filed 2 suits in Mississippi, 2 suits in Louisiana, 2 suits in practically every state, 5 suits in North Carolina. And what they did was that they spent literally hundreds of millions of dollars. Might not surprise you to learn that George Soros funded it. Mark Elias managed it. The whole Russiagate fame, and they filed lawsuits all over the country to get judges to adopt laws, quote-unquote laws or orders that basically threw out the duly enacted laws of the state legislatures. That's what they did. And the Secretary of State in Georgia, when he was sued by Stacey Abrams and her crowd, instead of fighting them and saying, no, I have no authority, and the judge has no authority to change the law, that's the legislature's responsibility, he ended up settling with them and entered into a consent decree. He wants to be loved by the left. And you and I both know what happens to Republican office holders when they decide that they like to be loved by the media and the left. It's not good for conservatives.
No. And the coronavirus provided the perfect storm. And now all the pieces begin to come together, how there were Democratic governors that just really exaggerated the threat, the scare, the fear, and the media helped them to push a lot of these election changes, not through the legitimate channels of the legislatures, but through the courts. Cleta,
they couldn't pass it through the legislature.
That's right.
So they did it another way.
Cleta, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to talk with you.
Always good to be with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Folks, this is disturbing. We're going to talk some more about this. But coming up next, another lawsuit, 38 U.S. senators joining with the Attorney General of Kentucky, who's lining up against the governor down there over religious freedom. That's next. Don't go away.